Your child's destiny is on the brink of being stolen and broken and crushed beyond repair. And the scary reality is that you can sense it. Your precious treasure is being faced with a very challenging and chaotic world these days. Do you ever feel like you've lost control, or you're scared or even fearful for your child's life and their future? You see, the number one shift to ensuring your child's safety right now, without risking the crazy drug overdoses or running away or harming themselves or others, or just having them flat out not live to their full potential, see, all that is laid out in the movie that you're about to watch. And if you care and pay very close attention for the next few seconds, you're gonna see everything, because the sad fact is that, frankly, most parents are left clueless with how to be an actual support for their teen today to make sure that they have a great future. And now we know that the reason your child is struggling is actually no one's fault. You see, society as we know it, it has crippled parents' ability to navigate this storm. So blaming the person in the mirror, it just needs to stop. Deal? But we have to replace that blame with some action-based responsibility. And the truth and fact of the matter is that the current systems for helping young people are broken. Boarding schools or church programs or even those crazy military boot camps, none of these are actually cutting it anymore, because there just needs to be more. See, these things are outdated and antiquated, and they don't reach the demands of the modern youth, the modern teen. And if you fall for the old ways of doing things, then unfortunately you'll end up with the old results so many regret-filled parents have, which is a lost child or a teen that they never get back. That's why we made this movie, to finally show parents like you a proven, refreshing, cool new way to connect your kid and your child back to you, based on decades of psychological research that really restores their imagination, their love for life, so that you can restore your relationships and renew excitement for a bold, new, big future full of hope and freedom and fun for your young one. So look, maybe you're curious to learn more, or you're just flat out desperate for anything to help your young one grow and overcome just the crazy climate these days. If you want to see what's working for parents all over the nation when it comes to their teens or their young adults, then the next 20 minutes are truly going to be the most important that you spend watching this whole year. My friend, welcome. It's with great honor to present to you the Dauntless Nation movie and documentary. Sit back and enjoy what will be an incredible adventure for you, your family, and your young one. Let's watch right now.
Let me guess, the deepest pain that you're experiencing right now is probably confusion. Frustration has to be up there also. You don't know who hijacked your sweet little toddler. You've got this teenager that looks like your child but acts like somebody else occasionally. You put all your effort into trying to connect with them, but they're experiencing something else, and you could be met with resistance at 95% of the turns you make, unless you feel like you're giving them their own way. I mean, you don't want to be held hostage by your teenager. You love them, but you don't want to be held hostage. You feel like the secrets of your teen just keep mounting up higher and higher. Maybe you're even asking yourself, how did we get to this point? You feel like maybe you've totally lost control. You're not alone. You're sitting in bed at night, Googling parenting tips for teenagers. Maybe you're Googling how to connect with your teen. Maybe you felt like you've tried every single thing. Maybe you wake up in the morning and you don't know what attitude your teen is gonna meet you with. And so you're like, okay, who am I gonna meet this morning? Am I gonna meet the happy person that maybe you see rarely? Maybe I'm gonna meet the person that just gives me resistance? Or maybe you're gonna get the silent treatment. Just because you're asking for help it doesn't mean you did a bad job. It takes a community to actually transition a teenager into an adult. So I just want to welcome you. Ask for help. There's so many more tools that we have through this process that can open up possibilities maybe that you've never even dreamed of for your teen. Maybe you do have some wildest dreams for your teens. Maybe you buried those wildest dreams in the grave in the backyard because that's for some other family. That's for some other teen. And right now you might find out that you're actually playing a game not to lose. What would it look like to play the game to win with your team, and your teen was on your team? I want you to imagine with me for a second that you have this connection, this borderless bond of a connection with your teen, that they want you to know everything about their life, that they don't have these secret corners to say, okay, I'm going to show my parents this, I'm going to show mom this, I'm going to show dad this, and I'm going to keep this to myself. Imagine that little area of secrecy doesn't even exist. Those are all possibilities through this. Imagine that they come to you with a bad day that might seem small to an adult, but it's big for them. Imagine that they feel welcomed enough by you that they can come and share that bad day. Maybe somebody said a hurtful thing to them at school, or maybe they saw a video that affected them a certain way on TikTok, and they actually feel permission from you, and they feel the right as a teen that they can come to you and share those things with you. And there aren't those little dark spaces in the corner of your teen's mind like you know exist right now. I'm a father of five children. I still have 2 teenagers myself. Imagine the greatest dreams that you have for your teen. I mean, the wildest, greatest dreams. And I would encourage you right now, those are not a fantasy. Not only is it not a fantasy, it's a reality, especially when parents trust us with this process with their teens.
And I wanted Grace to have an opportunity to meet other adults that are responsible and really are for the kids, and a safe place for her to go to, that I knew that she would be able to grow and flourish in a way that she wouldn't just be able to do at home.
I decided to send Chloe to Dauntless because she was struggling in school through COVID. She's had a hard time making friends and those deep connections that I discovered for my child to make.
The skill sets that they need are not being trained, they're not being taught. The mental skill sets, the emotional, the relational, the spiritual, the physical, like those are all things that we collectively have as humans that we should be prioritizing as a whole, but they're not prioritized almost at all, especially with our youth today. This was an opportunity for me, based upon an invitation from Michael, to allow 2 people that are so dear to my heart, my son and future daughter-in-law, to walk into a space together where they can get a different set of eyes and be challenged in a way that they've never been challenged before.
In the world today, these kids aren't connected to creation, God, each other. So we're just really focused on getting them connected.
All right, before I tell you what this is, let me be very clear on what this is not. This is not some summer camp where, they sing songs around a fire. It's not a church camp where they're gonna go to and pray and read their Bible. It's not some military camp where you send the bad kids where they come home and go, yes, sir, no, sir. This is not a place for at-risk teens. This is a place for all teens who are at risk for not living out their dreams.
This is about an opportunity to actually save your child from future emotional death, spiritual death, relational death.
So what makes our experiential training, the game, any different? Well, this is life gamified. Whether you like it or not, life is a game. And if you don't know how to play, how are you gonna win? Yeah! So we create strategies. Today's world in schools, we hear our teens, and many teens complain that they're going to school to just memorize facts. Well, how is that serving you in the real world? And so what makes us different is we create experiences that you learn through.
We've taken decades of research into the human condition and collapsed it into 4 days of experience called the game. We have gamified the adventure of a teenager meeting themselves, sometimes for the very first time.
My parents were together since they were 13 and 15, and I was raised, with an intact family, and as a teen, I got very lost. And the best way to describe it is like I had a hole in my heart and it was bleeding, and was trying to maybe put a Band-Aid on it, but it was becoming a gaping hole that I couldn't figure out how to stop the bleed. I didn't speak the same language as my mother, who has passed. Really, now looking back, I did not interpret their love adequately. Who I was inside was not who I was portraying to the world. I had an identity gap. So to the world, it seemed normal. I seemed like a go-getter, ambitious, had a plan. But the truth is, I was quite aware that I was so hurting inside. I got an abusive relationship, and then I turned to drugs, and then eventually to crime. And the truth is, I thought I was the only one. Like most of us think we're the only one going through that. But I had been through so much pain and suffering at such a young age, some in my own hand. Some people reached out to me, but I didn't take their hand, and I just became fairly obsessed with figuring out why. So I was looking at a system that was just giving me the victim card at every turn. And I saw all these women that were going through similar things, and they were taking the victim card so easily given to us, actually forced down our throat by the system. You're forever an addict. You're a survivor. You've been broken and beaten, and it's not your fault. Well, when I started to inquire what happened, I had to own a lot of the things that happened to me. And I noticed in today's world, we don't take extreme ownership. Not only do we not take extreme ownership, we're really given an out at every turn. I knew there was a better way, and it was radically different than any part of the system that I had been in. From peer counseling to groups to psychiatrists to therapists, through every part of the system I'd been, no one was truly holding somebody account for the actions that they've taken and saying, hey, you've been victimized, but you're not a victim any longer. I saw a system really making an effort to keep people in that frame. And so I met Michael, and we broke out of that frame.
Yes, for the last 15 years, my wife Dana and I, we've been working with law enforcement in California, rehabilitating sex trafficked ladies, convicts, prostitutes, drug addicts, you name it. We just, if people needed our help, we'd help them out. After 25 years of study of the human condition in quantum physics, neuroscience, psychology, learned a pathway into the human psyche that was a little different than what was being taught by the masses. And so her and I put it to a test about 13 years ago. Started doing that out of our house. And the results were nothing short of mind-blowing. Then we created some facilities in Northern California. And then what we learned also with that group of people is that we didn't teach them how to be normal. We actually taught them how to be teachers. And in the process, their old life just seemed to vanish away. And then, COVID came and just created a bunch of chaos in the world.
The coronavirus pandemic.
Heightened states of emergency across the nation.
Businesses across the country forced to shut their doors.
During that break, Dana and I got quite a few calls from the children of the adults that we had ministered to over the past 15 years, a couple thousand. Although I took it serious, I didn't take it as a now serious. Dana and I have 5 children. 2 of them are still teenagers at home, and I watched a change happening in the 2 teenagers that we had at home, and it was heartbreaking. Felt a little confused at first, and then I sat down more like a science. I don't want to call it my kids an experiment, but I started to observe and become the student role of teenagers, trying to learn this unique language of connection, because once you can connect with anybody, if you have the roadmap, the rest of the world it's a playground, so to speak. So after working with my teenage son and daughter through this process, and I seeing some of the results, and then communicating with the teenagers of the adults that we'd worked with, we'd put that curriculum together. Just brought so much excitement, not just for Dana and I because we put it together, but for the people going through it too, to watch the excitement actually happen with the people that we were coaching, ministering to, if you will, and watch the relationships with the parents transition too, from a case of being hopeless to the aha moment to go, okay, this is the direction we're going, and created a team in the household. To say that something was wrong from what we observed is somewhat of an understatement. But to identify that there was a challenge, there was a hunger in the other teens that they're calling our house, but to witness it in our own teens opened my eyes up to observe really what was going on in the big picture, and not with the pandemic, not with what's going on overseas, but hey, what's happening with the children of the United States right now? They're almost the invisible, quiet ones who are yelling for help the loudest. And when I saw and observed that there was a need, I could actually started to hear clearly the call for help. And there wasn't a system out there that developed and promised the results that I knew were needed for this generation. My son told me, my teenage son told me one time, because we were having a heated discussion, and I was telling him what it was like when I was a child, the same thing as my dad told me and his dad and so on and so forth. And my son looked at me and he says, "Dad, but this is a different generation." And at first I wanted to slough it off. But then I started to take a look and I'm like, you know what, he's right. This is a different generation. And if this is a different generation, then the tools that were used on the previous generations are going to be ineffective.
My thing was that I just wasn't being understood, no matter how hard I tried to explain myself, no matter how many different ways I tried to explain myself. Since I started actually taking a look on myself, and since I started talking actually to Dana about it, I kind of realized that it's not that I'm having trouble explaining myself, it's that I don't know how.
To actually work with a group of people, teenagers, and create a lasting difference for them produces eternal effects, not just for them, but for all of us that are working with these teenagers as well. And so the results, the positive results that we get, they'll last for generations.
I see so many young teens stuck in their stories. If you just turn the wheel a little bit, right? You end up in a whole nother destination.
Trying to find something new and better in yourself to rock with what you are already.
Chloe, my daughter, she doesn't need a pill. She doesn't need a Band-Aid. Now her life has meaning. Her life has purpose. Her visions are being laid out in front of her, and she's able to grow.
Because it doesn't matter if I'm scared of paintball or not, I'm gonna do it. I'm a beast, bro. I'm a beast.
So let me just give you some facts. Over the last 2 years, suicide attempts among teenage girls doubled. There are 6% of our entire teenage population on psychiatric meds. 750,000 teenage pregnancies, and half of them have left school. Nearly 25% of our entire American population are fatherless homes. 25% of our teen boys are addicted to porn. And over the last 2 years, teenage drug overdoses rose by 27%. That is 8,000 drug overdoses a month. But here's what we've discovered. Our teens are not lost. It's not too late. They're not so far off that we can't get to them. It's really quite simple. The teen can change in one conversation. A very simple method of love and connection and meeting them where they're at. The transformation is really so simple. We've made it complicated because the noise of the world. We don't give them the tools to actually walk this stuff out. And really, we don't meet them where they're at. So it is quite simple. All is not lost. We just need to quiet the noise for a minute. Get still. Nurture them in a different way. We've been using old systems, we've been using old ways, we're stuck in our paradigms. We believe our teens should behave the way we did when we were young, and some of those simple truths are still true. But we have to approach them in a new modern world. And it isn't easy, but it is simple, and there is a way, and we've discovered that way.
We now all have a common language.
Yes, okay.
It is way harder to be a 16-year-old today than it was for me.
Why not take this jump with your child and jump into life in a situation where it's so unknown that you have a chance to grow with your child?
If we do not fight for the hearts and minds of our children, there will be no hope. There will be no restoration. There will be no future. And so to me, this is a beautiful, beautiful and powerful and this necessary way to move this forward in a way that saves lives.
So what is Dauntless Nation? What is the program? Well, there's 7 days pre-training, 4-day immersion experience designed to wake up the teen and bring a connection with each other and create a unit, if you will.
6 months of coaching, group coaching, private coaching. That's really important because, you know, they learn what they learn at the experience, but that's an emotional experience.
It feels empowering. If I can do this, I can do anything.
The development of what they learn during those 4 days, the magic is in the aftercare, the connection after.
With the 3 C's, we call them: connect, collaborate, and conquer. And the connection piece is that 4 days where they connect with each other, so they build that trust unit with each other. We've given them a myriad of tools that they can use for the rest of their life. The next 6 months of online coaching is teaching them and being with them on what tool do you use, how do you use it, and what situation do you get in your toolbox and use that tool effectively.
And really the accountability for your dreams, right? So you're sharing your dreams about, you know, who you want to be, but we all know that, you know, if you're not accountable to someone for those dreams and developing those daily habits and executing on the things that you learned, you know, it would be a waste. So it really, again, the magic is in the follow-up.
We've gone through deposits, and we're recommending that you do deposits in your household, especially with your parents and or guardians.
And in Dauntless, you have real people, real time, being so dangerously, courageously vulnerable, letting these teens know, listen, this was our experience, this is what's happening now after that. Instead of teaching and forcing, these people get curious.
You know, it does take a tribe to raise these kids. As parents, I've learned we got to be mindful about the tribe that we set up around our kids. And Michael and Dana Bryant are a part of that tribe. And we entrust David, Leah, and Jonathan to their careful and loving hands.
I am really happy with Sebastian's stay in the program because right now I can see the results. He's getting better with the grades.
You know, one of the things that makes Dauntless Nation quite unique is that across the board as a nation, we have lost the rite of passage where children become adults. And take a look around you, we see a bunch of adult children walking around that want the privileges of being an adult without the responsibilities of an adult. So that's actually addressed in that, and they go through that rite of passage, if you will, and own, I mean really just own, okay, I'm an adult, I'm walking into adulthood, these are the privileges and these are the responsibilities that go along with that.
This is a journey. If you want real results, this is what is required. We are not here to make everyone just feel good. This is not an emotional high experience and they go home and it fades away. These are deep-rooted, big wins.
Oh my gosh, you guys transformed.
The guarantee that we have is we're going to present them with the tools. Now, how they use the tools are going to be strictly up to the teenager and when they use the tools. Because what we've learned is, you know, you try to force a teen to do anything, you're going to be met with resistance. However, we give them the opportunity to use those tools. It is up to them, and so are the wins. However, when they do win, those results are theirs to own.
I feel like this experience has helped me so much more open, and I'm so glad that I went.
They really helped me understand how to talk to my parents so they could actually understand me and listen to me more than they used to.
I was kind of skeptical. I know I have my own life. Everyone has a different perspective of life. And I still came in. I loved the program.
I was there and I realized that this was an experience that I would never forget.
What's next?
I go back to the peer support a lot. There's a bond that's created that you can't replicate it. And that is what Dauntless is providing.
Taking them into an environment that will absolutely open up a complete different world of perspective to them that they desperately, desperately need. If we do not learn how to connect with each other around that mission, it's going to be game over. And it's just that simple.
David, Emma, Grace, Melissa, May, Ashley, Jordan, Chloe, Brooke.
Bring it in. Come on in, David. Wow. You just saw real transformation right before your very eyes. You cannot unlearn, you cannot unsee, and you cannot unfeel what you just witnessed.
Now you have a choice. You can stay in that old paradigm, that old way, that old method, that old system that you may or may not be using. But it's got you frustrated. So it's time to try on something new.
Live by this, okay?
It's time to do something different right here, right now.
Dauntless Nation is ready for you. Question is, are you?